Welcome back to How China Works. I'm Brendan Davis. Our co-host Ying Li will be with us in just a moment. Our guest today is Miss VIDA ZHANG FARGIS. VIDA is the CEO and founder of Ms. V Etiquette, which is a women's empowerment platform across China. They have both an online and offline presence, where they focus on the almost lost art of home economics, working to integrate young women's education. And she's a cross-cultural entrepreneur, has lived in China and the U.S. while traveling the world. And she has a very insightful perspective on both a woman's role, as she sees it, in building family values and raising children, as well as being a leader within the family. So guess what? We're live. I'm here with Ying and Vida. Vida, it's so nice to have you on the show today.
Oh, nice to be here, Brandy. Thank you so much.
So having said all of that, we're going to get into the details as we go. But Vida, just tell us a little bit about maybe where you're from and where you are now, and then we'll unpack all that.
I was born in China, Shandong province, which is about 4 hours drive from Beijing, where we are now in Beijing. And I lived in the States for about 20 years, and I'm a mother of three. 2 daughters, 1 son. My husband from New York. So we are really a cross-culture family.
Absolutely. You're a very own cross-cultural experiment under one roof.
That's how I found you. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
When I found you, what especially attracted me about you is you are working, but not just working on this particular project that you're having. It's empowering both women and kids, but in a cross-cultural way. How do you actually do it?
Our platform, Ms. VIDA Kids, work with both young people and mothers. Yes, we offer bilingual programs, both in Chinese and English. And we try to encourage the mom to turn the home as education space for the children. So aiming at, educating kids physically, socially, emotionally, cognitively. So we do this through online and offline classes and workshops as well.
How long have you sort of been interested in this topic? Like, where did that interest in that general idea come from? I guess what I'm wondering is the actual date or year doesn't matter so much as when did you sort of feel the need for this? Like, when did you notice this was something that was lacking? That how did you start? Was it just within your own family and then it grew into this company? Is that sort of how it grew?
I think this can trace back to perhaps 20 years ago. The time I was in the U.S. Of course, 20 years ago, China, it was very different from what it is now. Exactly. And, I already noticed the huge differences between China and the U.S., particularly in home setting, lifestyle-related, events, activities. Mm-hmm. So there was a while back.
Did you notice that there were certain sort of life skills that you felt people were missing, or what gave you the idea to sort of start focusing on
the home,
on the home as an incubator, as an
here.
Educational opportunity? I think that's a really great idea.
Yeah,
I always love this question because I have to bring out my mother-in-law.
Okay, nice.
Mother-in-law, right?
Right. She's in New York. And I remember the first time I walked into her kitchen and I was really, surprised, shocked. I thought, gee, a kitchen can be this way. Because, of course, she's a very artistic person. She likes decos and nice things for the home. And I never seen a Chinese kitchen like that.
Right.
So that was something I remember until now, and I often share this story with my moms.
What was the Chinese kitchen look like back then? At that moment, you had that particular feeling?
And many of them actually small space, always constructed in the way that back in the house somewhere. It's enclosed space too. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of separate from the main living space. It's not sort of in your face.
Right, exactly. And usually there's an individual door that if you want to do the cooking, and then you can go in and close the door.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like a service kind of a setup as opposed to like integrated within the family.
Exactly. And it's not like an open kitchen. Now the open kitchen concept is starting getting popular here in China. It was very different.
I can imagine what that was like because my mom is now, she's retired, but she's an interior designer by profession and a gourmet chef with training. And seeing pictures of me posting on social media when I visited home, because my mom, I mean, she has cabinets full of different dishes for different seasons and occasions. And she has that sort of environment where the kitchen is as much of a part of the home as any place else. And it's decorated. It's up to date with the mood and the theme of the season. And she takes it to an extreme, but I think that is something that's a little more probably a little more Western.
I can really relate to
background.
that too, because the moment when I went to a kitchen in my Brazilian home, actually when I was living in Brazil, I have like families and friends that visit there. And also the same thing when I entered a kitchen in the US families.
Right.
Wow, I feel everything is sort of so much organized, and the bakery, and of course from the equipment wise,
Exactly.
it's very separated and individualistically presented. So, did you notice some cultural aspect in between those two different cultures, like Eastern and Western kitchens? Any particular story that you could share with us that can basically help us understand a little better about that particular culture, from this both sides?
Absolutely. There are many, many differences, actually. And one story I enjoy sharing with the moms and also young children is about the differences between a Chinese cleaver, the big chop, the big,
right.
knife.
The one knife that they seem to do for everything.
Exactly.
Pulverizing chicken bones that I choke on.
Right. Between, for example, a French knife, chef's knife, paring knife, right? So you look at the size, look at the shape, they're different. Of course, when you use it, the sounds are very different.
Sounds, right?
Yeah, the sound, right, exactly. For Chinese cleaver, that's big chop, chop, chop.
It's like you're chopping a tree.
Right. For, the Western style chef's knife, it's tap, tap, tap. You never make the biggest sound of a chop. And I think the most amplified this big chop sound is Chinese New Year time.
Oh, really?
In northern part of China.
Okay.
When people make dumplings for the New Year's Eve.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's
I've done this, but I don't think of the noises. Or they're chopping up the meats and the stuff that goes
Right.
into the filling.
Right.
Oh,
Because
right.
people make dumplings almost at the same time. The time,
There's a
before
certain
the dinner.
period of time you can make dumplings.
So you're thinking like hearing it throughout like a building of people like
Right,
chop, 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 chop.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a collection of the sound, chopping sounds, and then you feel like the earth is shaking. So that's one difference.
And there's one Chinese term called 一刀切, exactly like using one knife to chop everything.
Okay.
And it's like a 1, 2, 3, 4. It could be applied in many, many ways in life, Chinese life.
Right,
一刀
exactly.
切.
Is this a metaphor for other things?
Actually, some people summarize this reflects the characteristics of Chinese people, meaning max, which means use the minimum effort to get a maximum return.
Yes.
Wow.
Mini max.
That's a pretty good philosophy in general, I think, if you can make it work.
That's pretty interesting as well.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that you noticed. What are some of the things that sort of like in terms of those cultural contrasts, like when you first, were first confronted with your mother-in-law's wild Western kitchen with all these probably, what does that utensil do? Is that a utensil? What is that? It's like such a different world, I imagine, from the traditional kitchen at that time.
Well, it is actually, and we have classes about dining etiquette, which is about how to set the table, how to use placemat, the plates, knife, forks, etc. We always talking about the differences between Chinese culture and Western culture, right? That's part of curriculum too. Right.
And for the kids right now, you teach, right?
Yeah, for both kids and moms as well, right? And for example, that actually how you eat at the table reflects how you prepare the food in the kitchen. For example, steak, right? For example, steak. And when you eat a steak, usually you have to have a knife. You need to cut it. So which means the chef back in the kitchen, they, prepare the meat in a bigger pieces. And then, but for Chinese people, we use chopsticks. You'll never be able to cut steaks with the chopsticks.
You'd be pretty hungry. You'd be skinny by the time you get that steak cut.
So therefore, that requires you prepare the meat, even home kitchen or professional kitchen, with a smaller pieces, with a one bite. You use chopstick, you pick it up and put into your mouth. One bite, that's it.
And also showcase the differences between the East and West. And we have a lot of differences when we, for example, having dinner together here in Chinese home and the Western home. It's really represent the two ways of thinking and doing and in cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
in many ways.
Right, many ways. Yeah, like, on the Chinese dining table, we share everything. As like a collective sharing experience versus when you eat, Italian food or French food, you order for your own. Right. So you eat what's in front of you, and not much sharing. Of course, you can ask, hey, would you like to try mine? You can do that.
But there is that unspoken, not to be the bad geopolitical metaphor, but there's a wall around my plate if I'm in the U.S., basically.
Exactly.
So that particular story or that particular inspiration 20 years back at the time brought you the idea of like how you could take advantage of that curiosity in making into some other thing that you're doing right now. Like we're entering a new age, we're entering a new era of society, right? So how do your audience, kids or mom right now, feel the need of understanding and integrating the lives into the thing, something like you teach?
I do work with many kids from international schools.
Okay.
And I had one camp, summer camp. We had about 15 kids. Literally, they were from 12 different international schools and private schools in the neighborhood. So for those kids, they are out of the Chinese exam Gaokao system. They're aiming to go to study abroad.
They don't have to study for that thing.
Right, exactly. And then for this group of students, even moms, I think it's important for them to know about, when you leave China, go to different countries, how you behave, how to eat the food. There's so many things. It seems a lot of things, but it's all important. And I heard lots of stories about middle school students go to abroad and stay with the a family in
host
the US.
family.
Yeah,
host
homestays
family,
kind of
right? And a lot of stories about them is like kids hungry. Couldn't, just call the mom and say, I'm hungry, I don't have enough food to eat. And the mom gets, frustrated. You don't have food to eat.
And how did all those Americans get so fat if you don't have food? I can say that as a fat American.
It's not because they don't have the food in the refrigerator, didn't prepare for the kids. Right. It's because the kid doesn't recognize how to do it. Everything's there in the refrigerator, in the kitchen, utensils, everything are there.
Right.
But they don't know how to deal with it, don't know how to do it. So therefore, my classes offer this bicultural elements. We're not saying, Chinese way is better or, Western way is better than another. We are saying that they are two different cultures. But, depends where you go, you need to be aware of it. Mm-hmm. So social behavior that be even, help the young kids to gain some confidence.
Right.
What do you expect the children to gain from these particular activities, bicultural activities you design for them once they leave China for a completely new home, a new culture? And what are the key competencies that those kids and those children could really gain from this preparation you do for them?
I think it's mostly it's social confidence. Yeah, and like look at it now, what's happening here in China. The kids are getting younger and younger when they go to abroad to study, even starting from middle school. So when they go there, and what kind of food you bring to school is important, and clothing you wear, the way you say things, all those things are important for them to know before they leave, China, right?
And words from you inspired me to think of those other episodes that we have done. We focus on talking about the cross-cultural capabilities for Chinese students to be abroad, to study in the U.S.
Yeah, things you have to know to be able to integrate.
Yeah, there are academic competencies. There's important independent thinking, critical thinking, those mindset, the real capability to be a leader need to be developed. But how about these life skills?
Yeah. Right,
life
exactly.
skills are very important.
Yeah.
And because that's why I find your background and the story are quite interesting, because I heard that these days younger Chinese students living abroad face so much pressure, not just from academic activities or work, but in life, in social life, in living daily life. They have so much thing need to do with, and that's the cultural thing. That's the air they breathe every day. And it's a bigger ratio, actually. It's a bigger percentage in their life in engaging with different cultures. So worth paying attention to. And how could people get prepared with this aspect of cross-cultural competency? And we are really looking forward to hearing more of these, any kind of activities in China that is happening to prepare them for.
Yeah, where do you start when you're actually, when say I'm a little tyke, and you're trying to train me up. Where do you start?
We usually start from the kitchen.
Okay.
The reason is we think the kitchen is a great place to learn. And in the overall home management and design programs we have, kitchen is a big part of it. And we call it 5 sense kitchen.
Okay.
5 senses. Human being have,
5 senses.
Right, exactly. And the sight, right, the hearing and touch and the smell and the taste. So we all, been to school. Is any classes at the school offer 5 senses learning all at once?
Generally speaking, we watch and we listen and we speak. That's it.
I mean, you might do PE, and so there's seeing and touching, and actually physical things activate the most because you're
right.
The kinesthetic is the one that that engages everything.
Right,
because
but you
have
cannot
to
eat.
Right, that's true.
Tasting.
Well, okay, you're tasting your sweat as you're running around in the sun, I guess. But yeah, so different thing different things. So how to integrate that. So what you're doing is this integrated approach. I think that's what we're both kind of trying to get at. Is that what you have is this integrated approach? You start in the kitchen.
Right, and we start with kitchen. Then in the kitchen, kids are moving around. There's emotions because when they're just busy, right, and connect to the nerve and the nerve different interaction altogether, and then we move into even how to prepare bed.
Okay.
Prepare your own bed and manage your own wardrobe, do your own laundry, collecting all your own toys. And if, people have garden, we teach them gardening.
Nice.
So, we have, a very special program. We call it Herb Kitchen. Basically, we cultivate herbs in the kitchen and potted herbs. And then kids can just, look at it, touch it, smell it, taste it, And then during the process of the making any drinks or dishes, they can just cut it and use it. So maximize the opportunity to get close to the nature.
I wanted to do that, actually. I never even told you this, but when I moved into this place, because I've got like a nice big window over there behind us, and I can't put anything outside, but there's a long enough windowsill. I really want to do like a little window garden with like mint and basil and like a handful of things that I would use. Right. Things I would use either like throw in tea or like, the mint I'd throw it in almost any kind of a drink. If I had fresh mint all the time.
Exactly.
So that's
Make
a lot
a
mojito, right?
Sorry.
I love rum. You went right to it. You zeroed in on my weak spot. So you how long is there like sort of a standard like course of study for your program, or do people, how do you approach it, or do they just sort of they signing up to just sort of learn a whole, they just kind of stay with you for as long as they feel like they have things to learn? Or is there a specific course outline? Because I know you mentioned there's an online component to this.
Right.
So I imagine that's pretty specific, and the offline is probably a little more organic.
Right. And we do semester-long classes, which means just like you go to school.
You plan them out that way.
Right, exactly. You sign up for the whole semester and systematically finish the whole course.
In China, this is pretty permanent, and this is pretty common everywhere. Like there's one-child family, and their kids are being taken care of by their grandparents. So you must have a lot of stories in helping family understand this logic and the values of your activities. What are the responses at first place when you tell parents or grandparents that here is the way I'm going to help the kids to do this and that?
There are lots of changes, not only in the home, as you can see, the whole world here in China. And yes, in kitchen, there are many changes too. And one-child policy has been in place for so many years. And they regarded as emperors, empresses, and hardly they, have the opportunity to go into the kitchen. And I have a mom who brought her daughter. Her daughter was about 13 years old, and she wants to learn cooking. But whenever she tries to get into the home kitchen, her grandparents stay with them, always yell out, "Don't go in there. It's dangerous. You're going to cut your fingers. Wow, you're going to burn yourself." Poultry kitchen is a dangerous place. So don't go there. So this mom, of course, realized the importance of having her learn some basic life skill.
Sure.
And then, she brought her daughter here. And I'm also happy that, she took the action actually to change the perception from older generation. I mean, kitchen is not a place so dangerous or dirty. That's a place that holds the whole family's happiness through food.
Well, that's a lovely way to put it. I mean, they can be dangerous, and if they're dirty, that's a bad thing. But you're teaching people to have a sense of ownership of that as a place where they belong.
Right.
Do you consider what you're doing at all? This is I'm going to use a dangerous word. This is fairly progressive, I would say, in a good way.
Yeah. Or modern,
do you feel like you're blazing a trail? Because like you mentioned, there still is a lot of that mentality of like the grandparents or maybe even the ayis might be older. And so maybe they've been brought along to help take care of the kids. Meanwhile, the kids are watching content and they're on the internet to some degree and they have friends in other international schools. So they're hearing things that are beyond what their grandparents know about. So is that part of what you have to overcome a lot when you have some kids?
Exciting thing about China is that it seems everyone's learning all together.
Yeah.
Just like iPhone, right? It didn't exist before.
Right.
Now kids have it, parents have it. We all use it at the same time. Mm-hmm. And if for the older generation in China, not necessarily teach the younger generation, because so many things we all start fresh. it started in the, simultaneous fashion, right? And then, but if you look at what's going on right now, the different international brands coming into China, information you can get, more and more people learn English, more and people go to study abroad and coming back. And then their lifestyle is gradually changing. New things, new kitchen tools are here in the market. You got to learn about it. It's not a big chop knife anymore.
Right. It's not just the
there's
cleaner.
more than that. Exactly. Right. So in a way that I think that's the trend, right? But it's also brought up questions that what are we going to pull from the past as we go along?
Right.
I think this is the discussion has been going on in China actually. And that's, we have workshops, open workshops. We talked about, literature, current issue, news, things concern our community. So we're pretty open with the hope that we can explore, what we're going to keep for our children, for the next generation. We can pass on generation after generation. And, there's lots of noise out there anyway. Sure. So, and we try to find a way to, suggest means by which mom ask themselves, what would speak to them? Speaking to them, speaking tradition, and then speaking to the new place, they found in the world, their family, where their family is.
Seems to me that this is a combination of efforts between aligning the efforts between the past and the future in cultivating kids. What are the virtues that kids could still gain from learning more about the tradition? Because we were talking about a lot of progressive activities here. We're talking about helping kids and families understand what is modern lifestyles, maybe what we should pay attention to when it comes to East and meets West and this kind of thing. But what are the virtues and values from the traditional homes in China that you bring to the kids, and how are the reactions to it?
I think that's the struggle we've been having actually. For older generation, for younger generation, we all try to figure out. I mean, as a parents, I'm mother of 3. Sometimes, you come to the point you don't know what to do with your life or with the children. You have so many children that are waiting for you to point out the future for them. But sometimes, as adults, you even ask yourself, what's your future?
Sure. Well, that's the dirty secret of being a grown-up is we're just older versions of the kids. We don't have all the answers.
That's the reality.
But you have to provide them some leadership. So.
Well, it is true. So I think for my husband and I, we both constantly actually think about questions like this because we're cross-culture family, and we often encounter in our home 2 cultures come together. Sometimes my husband say, "Oh, we should do this way." Sometimes I say, "Maybe not." It seems like 2 cultures coexisted in my family all the time. So during this process, we hope that, our kids can understand both, carry on the, best value out of 2 cultures combined.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you encounter, given that you, like, again, under your own roof, you're trying to have 2 cultures coexist and merge where they can and not be at war where they can't merge? What are some of the biggest challenges? What are some of the areas where you run into these things?
I think the best thing I have learned is, pause and think.
Good strategy.
So I don't have to fight with my husband all the time.
Would it be like that otherwise?
And pause is good.
Yeah, pauses are good because I think when 2 cultures come together, and there are many things mingled together too. And particularly you live together for so many years. Not just friends. You meet, you have dinner, and then you leave, right? But we live together as a family. We raise children together. So things are different from Chinese side, from American side, often encounter each other on a daily basis. Sometimes can be exhausting, actually. Because particularly when the kids were young, that you try to make a sense of both cultures, and you try to explain to them, hey, here's how Chinese culture works, and here's how American culture works. Yeah. It could be, tiring.
There's no middle ground between diapers and split pants. Right. There's no in between.
Yeah, and but this is why there's a term called third culture kids. Right. I think, for many international schools, then kids are third culture kids.
This might be a good thing. Even though it might be tiring, exhausting, and when to compromise.
It's interesting. Okay.
I would say it's worthwhile.
There's a thing about may you live in interesting times is actually a Chinese curse. Interesting.
It's stimulating too.
Yes. Those are good words. I see what you're doing there.
Yeah.
And part of your initiative is to empower women, right? Mostly here at this moment in China, young women to be able to find their voice, and married or unmarried. So how did you actually do it? You mentioned you have programs about empowering young lady or young women, and you also have this concept called 女主人, right? How can I interpret that?
It's very hard to interpret.
Yeah, I thought about this 主人is like a master in the house.
I know,
right? 女主人. So
is it sort of like a female empowerment? Is a way to think of it? Or am I overly simplifying it or putting my own filter on it?
It's empowering women. But we try to looking for a word, particularly which can replace 女主人. It's very hard. Whether in French, Spanish, or English, it's just so hard to find that equivalent.
But it's refreshing to hear this word 女主人 in today's era, right? Right. And the rise of female leadership and the role of women has been rising in all over the places. But I would say 主人, from your understanding, from your setting, your environment, and what role this particular concept play in family, like 女主人.
Well, when we say 女主人, doesn't necessarily mean you're married or you have to be a mom. Whoever can, be responsible for her own life, we regard it as 女主人 in the new world.
Okay.
Right. That's how we define it.
So this is your goal, is to create a new generation of new children, if I'm pronouncing it
exactly.
correctly.
Yeah, responsible for your own life, responsible for the community. Our slogan is wisdom, fashionable, and also responsible.
What you just said, I was asking a question in sort of a long-winded way that I think I've cut it out. I think Ying asked the better question. I was trying to sort of say earlier, and I think you just said it, about how you integrate the traditional and the new, right? So if there's
two kinds of virtues and values together,
right? And what you just said, really, that seems to sum it up well. You might have trouble replacing that word because it seems like this. It seems like this encapsulates what you're going for.
For what kind of approaches have you been adopting to be able to do that, to really help a woman to be able to equip with this concept of 女主人? And what are the activities that have you held so far to be able to explain how you can help this particular community you want to cultivate?
Similarly, we have online, offline classes, workshops for moms as well. And
what kind of moms?
What kind of moms? We focus pretty focused on full-time moms.
Full-time, 全职妈妈.
全职妈妈. Yeah, that's right.
Are there a lot of 全职妈妈 here?
I think it's getting more and more, and particularly with the policy of having second child. I only see this number can be increased in the next few years.
Why?
Because you think about that, when you're pregnant and have the baby, it takes roughly about 2 years, right? Pregnant for about 10 months and have baby, rest up 6 months and get ready. Even you want to go back to work, that accumulate up to 2 years. If you want to have second one, easily 3-4 years, big chunk of time is already covered out.
Even if they're back to back, basically.
Right, exactly.
Right. What we call Irish twins.
So women face the choice that, should we stay in the workforce or should we, be a stay-home mom? But this is not just, happening in China. I would say this is happening all worldwide. All women facing challenge between family and professional life.
That's real, and that's real physical and psychological pressure coming from women and female communities. And nowadays, you see in China, specifically online, offline, there are a lot of communities focusing on empowering women and helping women to at least, psychologically feeling a little bit more relaxed. And do you see some good approaches in the society that are quite effective in helping women be out of this a little bit?
I see many programs like, encourage moms or women to start their own business. And there's some organizations get together, try to, have workshops and to connect women. And they all do it in the one fashion or another. I think what I've been doing is use the home as my domain. And, you cannot forget the concept of a home when you talk about 女主人, the moms and the children.
Right.
That's a fabulous way to say the connection is the home. Home is where we grew up.
Right, exactly. And also we have because, we have a home, it's right at our fingertip. We say, yes, that's our space, not like, other places, the school or a society, sometimes it's out of your control. But for home, it's right there. It's your space. What are you going to do with your own space? That's what we try to share with the moms. Turn the home space you already own. It's your asset into education space. And learn and innovate together with your children. So that's how we, develop the program. That's the core value, actually, home value, right?
Could you share with us one example, one story, or friend of you maybe in this particular community that make full use of this concept and understand fully about what home culture is in this moment, and to be able to be successful in not just at home but also socially, right?
Yeah, you don't have to actually, maybe don't use their name unless there's someone you want to brag on, but maybe think of somebody who the transformation they had to make. I think that's what we're curious about, right? Where was their head before, and then where are they now? With your help.
Okay. For example, that there's a young mother who graduated from Canada, then 4-year university in Canada, came back to China, and became a full-time mom, staying home taking care of the kids. And she likes art, so on her own, she started to do watercolor painting. And at our third 女主人 culture celebration, we have this our annual event, the recurring section of which it's art exhibition all done by moms. Okay. So we showed her work and had her stand in the front talking to many moms, and she was so happy. She was thrilled. She felt empowered. And she said, I never thought of I would one day stand in front of so many powerful women. There was about 120 of them at the event.
That'd be a big moment.
Right. And, share my story and also my work, my art. And she's really, very happy. And then a few days later, after after event, she went to bank to fill out some forms. And there's a section, called occupation standards, right? We all need to fill out. Sure. And before, she would just put down unemployed because no one regarded her,
全职妈妈 is unemployed.
Right, unemployed. Okay. So, but this time, she just without hesitation wrote down artist.
Wow,
nice.
Bravo.
Good for her.
So I was so happy for her. And then since then she paid much more attention to, the home setting, home decor. Use the maturing home decoration as a way to carry her value with her kids.
That's a perfect example to say that a mom, 全职妈妈, could find values at home, right? I mean, everybody should start maybe pay attention to it. I mean, notice this kind of thing once they get stressful at home.
Right, that's what I've been trying to do. That not only teach moms to help children to learn some basic life skills, but also we try to find ways to cultivate creative side of moms, so they can do it. They can do it at home. They can demonstrate their work at home. That's make the home space beautiful. We all can do that. So we have, art classes, flower arrangement classes, and the moms come here and learn. And then afterwards, they're happy with their painting. They could hang on their home wall.
Right.
And make flowers and bring back home, And it's been fascinating. I really enjoy this process.
So from the success of this woman claiming her sense of self as an artist, is this something that you've seen expand within your circle of people?
Oh, yeah. And we actually have art classes, and moms come here to learn art. And then afterwards, we select the artworks, works with the business partners like restaurants, home goods store, and business offices. And then we sell mom's art to the business. And then they can rent or buy. And then the mom get paid. And then, they encourage you to do more.
That's a new business model.
Yeah, exactly.
Turn them into actual professional artists.
Yeah, with the hope.
If you're getting paid, you're a professional. That's what I tell people.
It's more like a social enterprise, but with a great, great potential. I mean, at this point, I've seen cases like for those orphans, or there's a project. I don't know exactly the name, but basically they collect the artist work, the painting from like 3, 4, 5 years old. Right. They're like orphans, but they brought this into big exhibitions and in some ways sell it, and they even put in some organizations on the wall of some enterprises, and people go visit and showcase. Wow, this, for example, there could be an internet company, but you see children's painting and so creative and so sometimes hard to understand what they're talking about. But you have this feeling of artistic feeling, but also have this feeling of relaxation when they see something different on the wall. I mean, that's possible in the future.
Right. We try to develop some programs which can sustain mom's interest. And I found that, people have interest in doing this and that, but usually afterwards they drop out. So we try to find a way to sustain that interest and turn the interest into the economic
sustainable.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so they can keep doing it. And our flower program is the same thing. It's a weekly flower program. Moms come here to learn, and afterwards we found the clients for them. And then they do the flower and design they're very happy with, and we deliver their work to our mom clients. So they're very happy. Yeah, well, and they get paid to do that.
That is fantastic. Well, as we're sort of wrapping up here, where can people go to find out more about what you are doing?
We have WeChat. We have the Weibo as well.
Okay.
And
We'll put links over
website.
there.
Yeah, we'll put the links in the show notes so people don't have to try to grab
That'd
a
be
pen right
good.
now. Right, it's easier.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all those stories and especially creative ways to look at how to cultivate kids and how to empower women and putting all together into a business. I think that's what our audience could get inspired from. And in the future, we'll bring a lot of interesting and cross-cultural talent, cross-cultural even businessmen, maybe businesswomen into understanding how actually it's not just like a big concept about building cross-cultural understanding and building bridges cross-culturally. They could be much more concrete and a lot of new projects coming up.
Absolutely. Vida, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much.
And thank you, dear listener. We will see you next week on How China Works.